All right, so why don't you just introduce yourself? Name, tag, and main, or mains.
Yeah. I'm Steven Martinez. My tag is Cox C0XX, and my main Luigi Fox. Kind of, I don't know, still here or there,
hmm
but whatever, whoever's fun on whatever day.
hmm So why don't you tell give a little insight into how you got your tag and how you chose your main or mains,
Okay.
or just like a history of your characters and stuff, or
Yeah.
tags if you've got a history of that.
So I originally played Captain Falcon. I was a super scrub so what started was my first year of undergrad. Uh, we played Brawl in my room, and I liked Falcon. I thought he was really cool. And then I kind of got curious. I asked myself the question of like, I wonder if Captain Falcon is like actually a good character. So that's when I looked up some tier lists, or like I googled it, like, oh, what like is Captain Falcon good or whatever, and then tier lists popped up, and that's when I like found out like, oh, there's this thing called Project M, that's kind of like Brawl.
hmm
And so I figured out a way to like get that working on my Wii. And it was I don't know, it was cool. I was still the same, still kind of bad, right? It didn't matter that Falcon was like better in that game. I didn't know how to play.
Right.
Um, and then what happened was I met you and like everyone who hung out in your room our first year, and you guys played Melee. And I remember I played Melee when I was younger, so I was familiar with it. It's not like I was completely like oblivious to Melee,
hmm
but I was always curious why you guys played that one. So I went, introduced myself. I think it was just you in the room that day,
hmm
and I remember distinctly you played White Marth, Barf, um, and I played Falcon, and you kind of just destroyed me because all I was doing was like side being and all that cringe stuff.
hmm
Um, and then from there, I started playing you guys more. And then I don't know. At some point, I like realized like, Falcon's hard, and I don't know how to like move around with this character. It doesn't really make much sense to me.
Uh-huh.
And for some reason, I don't know. I'm kind of like a goofy guy. I'm like attracted to goofy characters. In Ultimate, I like to play like Wario and King K. Rool,
hmm
stuff like that. So it's just like my personality. And so Luigi kind of stood out to me, but I wanted to make sure he wasn't like giga bad,
hmm
but he was like mid tier, and like I saw like some Abate stuff and Eddie Mexico stuff, and I was like, oh, this character looks cool, and it like makes sense, right? Very comparatively, Luigi is much simpler than like Captain Falcon is,
hmm
right? Because Luigi is just like, oh, I'm moving horizontally, right, and I have my game plan and everything. But with Falcon, it's like you have to do drift, and you have to worry about like really extreme spacing a lot of the time.
hmm
Um, and I still think that to this day, Falcon's a super hard character. Um, and so I started practicing playing Luigi, and I did that for a good long while. And then, yeah, and then so my tag, it's because in like friendly sessions, I don't know, I was just being kind of dumb and like I had Tourette's or something. I would just say like stupid shit, like I would say, Cox, like the actual term. And then I think my first tourney came around and I didn't know what my tag should be. Um, and I think you suggested that it be Cox. But then
hmm
I was like, what if I made it like C0XX, like 20X? That would be funny. That'd be at least like a little creative.
hmm
And so that's what it ended up being.
hmm
Um, yeah. So it's like kind of the only tag I've had. When I like did my social experiment and I played Ultimate for a while, I kind of like changed my tag to kind of separate myself from what my tag used to be. And it that tag also doesn't really fly with the ultimate crowd. Uh, no TO would say it.
Hmm.
So I just changed it to pink. And then when I came back to melee, I just took on the old tag again. So
Uh-huh.
yeah, that's like kind of my story with my mains and my tag.
Hmm. So your like, I guess, introduction to melee competitively aligned with your introduction to melee, competitive melee in Santa Barbara as well, right?
Oh, 100%. I had no idea what competitive melee was before coming to UCSB.
Hmm.
Um, I just knew it was a cool game. Like I played it a lot with my cousin growing up, and I knew you guys played it a lot
Hmm.
in your dorm room, but I didn't. I had no idea it was like, oh, top players and like a bunch of tech, and
Hmm.
that
So
was kind of an eye opening.
so you mentioned your first tournament, and going to it. Do you remember what your first tournament actually was?
I feel like not so much an exact tournament, but more kind of like a period of tournaments.
Hmm.
Like I might be able to pinpoint my first one. I'm like 100% confident I went O2. It was in the cramped little computer room.
In Harold
I
Frank
think,
Hall?
yeah, it was Harold Frank Hall.
Hmm.
Cramped computer room, a bunch of people, very not COVID safe. Um,
Hmm.
and yeah, we were all just kind of crammed in there. And it was, I don't know, it was cool. I had never really experienced something like that.
Hmm.
Um, we didn't go to the first tournament. I didn't go to a first tournament for a while. Like I just kind of played in your guys' room until I felt like I kind of knew what I was doing at least a little bit.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I don't know. I remember not doing very well in bracket and just thinking like, wow, I don't want to suck.
Hmm.
You know, I don't want to be the guy that goes O2. Like I want to like get better at this.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
I don't even remember who I played. They probably weren't very good and they beat me. So
Hmm. Yeah, so to give people an idea that of like what that of when like Harold Frank Hall tournaments were a thing, like can you take some estimates as to like the year or like the season, that kind of stuff?
oh yeah, it was probably like because I started undergrad 2014 fall.
Hmm.
I didn't start playing melee until like March
Hmm.
of 2015 is when I met you guys, and then I don't think I went to my first tournament until like the spring quarter of that year. So like spring 2015, like probably like April May ish.
Okay. I think that's you're actually the first person here who did not have an Ivy Vapor as their first SB tournament.
Hmm. Interesting.
Sam, Dave, and Spencer Strider, all their first tournament was in SB at least was Ivy Vapor for all of them, which is
Crazy.
kind of like crazy to me. Yeah,
That makes me feel like a boomer.
yeah. I mean, then there's like the many before us as well. But
Oh yeah.
what would you say was your initial impression of like the SB melee scene? Like if you had one.
Um.
Or I guess like the progression of your impression, like from start to current.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't really get a big impression when I first went. It just seemed like, you know, a bunch of gamers in a small enclosed space, that kind of
Hmm.
thing. It wasn't until I started to like get more familiar with like what the power rankings were and like what players to watch out for were. You start to kind of pay attention, like how they talk to each other, how
Hmm.
they carry themselves, I guess, how they kind of like command a setup in a way.
Hmm.
So I take note of those things. Nothing stands out to me in particular about SP Melee from my very like first tournaments.
Hmm.
Um, I just knew that like I wanted to beat all those guys, like for sure.
Hmm.
But I don't know. I never like kind of wedged my way into like any like groups or like making friends with people or anything.
Hmm.
So I don't know. It wasn't until like I became power ranked, and I guess people just started to see me as that guy, and I started to become more involved in the community just by virtue of like being power ranked and like carrying CRTs and helping and getting to know more people. I eventually became ingrained in. So over time, I started to see like, okay, this is like a really dope, chill, cool environment.
Hmm.
But I don't think I that wasn't really like my first impression from going, especially Harold Frank Hall. I imagine if like your first tournament's Ivy Vapor, you're gonna be like, whoa, this is like super chill vibes. This is sick.
Hmm.
But Harold Frank Hall, it's just a bunch of sweaty nerds in
Yeah.
a computer classroom.
Hmm. Yeah, I remember it was really stuffy in there sometimes. Like it was like so many electronics running, and like you were like bumper to bumper with like people like next to and behind you like at all times. It felt like navigating
Mhm.
your way through there was just a nightmare. A little bit of a nightmare sometimes. I remember, but I mean, a venue's a venue, a space is a space. Like you got to play somewhere.
Yeah,
So,
no.
um, so would you say that like your perception of the community has like changed over time? Like if you do you think you've observed like the culture of SB Melee, if you will, change or like, morph over time?
Yeah, I think at a certain point there were players who kind of, hmm, I don't know how to explain it. It felt more like what was really important was like being on the power ranking.
Hmm.
And then I feel like once kind of you and I led the conversation of like we should not have a power ranking, it became less about that and more about like us playing the game and just, yeah, there's going to be people that are competitive and like I want to beat you
Hmm.
and I want to like be better than you, but it's kind of like just that, right? You're fueled by that. And it's not so much like a community wide, like, oh, there's this like elitism amongst like people that are ranked and they don't want to play with anybody that isn't ranked and things like that.
Hmm.
Uh, I honestly think that kind of helped it become way more of like a chill, cool vibe environment. It kind of communicates the idea of just like, yeah, I don't really care that much where I am on the PR,
Hmm.
or like at least like you shouldn't. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like a nice like reflection of your abilities and like what you did during that ranking period. But like at the end of the day, I don't think people hyper fixate on it
Hmm.
anymore.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So when you do you remember when you were first power ranked in Santa Barbara? Like, do you remember the first like season?
It was not until fall 20 fall was it fall 2016? I don't remember. I remember it was the same season where I first beat Jake. It was in Hillel.
Hmm.
Yeah, it must have been either fall or winter. Fall 2015 or winter 2016, one of those.
Hmm.
I'm not 100% positive on that. Like I could look it up, but I'm lazy.
Yeah, that's fine.
But no, I remember it being Hillel. I
Hmm.
remember it being second year, and I remember I when I beat Jake, I wasn't power ranked yet. I don't think.
Hmm.
So that was kind of like a big win for me in terms of like getting to where I wanted to be and like getting my name at least somewhere, you know?
Right. Would you say that early on, like playing, you had anything you'd call like a sort of formative experience with like the game or like the culture? The culture being like more broad or more like local. That sort of like left a strong impression on you.
Yeah, I think it was the summer after I came. So, I started playing in like March of my first year. And everything I knew about Melee was just very enclosed to Santa Barbara, like whether it was like in the room playing with you guys, whether it was like those stuffy Harold Frank Hall tournaments. That was really my only exposure.
Hmm.
And it wasn't until the summertime when I went home for the summer and I was like, I actively sought out people to play against.
Right.
And that was the first time I like played against people like that weren't from Santa Barbara.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it was different. It was interesting. It's like, you're not from the same place as me. Like, you don't go to the same school as me, but you're like, you have the same hobby, right? And it kind of like widens your scope of like, this is like a thing that people like to do like everywhere. Well, that's cool. And then another pretty informative experience. Well, I think something during that summer also is like we would have like Smash Fests, and there'd be like 10 or 11 people like in like somebody's house like playing. And they would do like round robin things, right? And I would come in like last because I was bad, and like that like upset me because I didn't want to be bad. So it really like fueled me to get better. That was another like driving thing. And then another formative thing was like I don't think I was very, very into like top level Melee, like watching it yet. Like I knew who the top players were. Like I knew Hungrybox and I knew Mango and like Mewtwo King and Leffen. I knew those names, right? But in terms of like watching the game, I still felt like I was too bad at it to appreciate it. And I just wanted to play. And so like I heard there was a tournament, like a kind of a major happening like less than like a 15-minute drive from my house. And it was Paragon Paragon LA. Yeah, it was Paragon LA, and it was summer 2015. I don't know why they called it Paragon LA, because it took place in Ontario, California, which is like an hour and a half from LA.
Is it in LA County?
No.
Oh, well then I don't know either then.
I don't think so. Let me look it up. Ontario, California. It might be. It's not. It's not LA County.
Then it was just a marketing ploy.
Literally, that's like
just a fabrication.
That's like holding something in Wilbraham and calling it like Boston.
Yeah. Paragon Boston. It's on like a farm.
Yeah, literally. Anyway, so I went, and it was kind of like just my first time like seeing like top players and seeing like a whole bunch of people and like being in these pools, and I don't know, it was really weird. It kind of like as you get more into it, you see like the world is like so huge around you. And you kind of get immersed in it. So I think those are really informative experiences, because then like I came back for my second year and I was like fired up, and I was like, I'm gonna get PR'd. Like that's my goal,
I remember when you came back, like I remember the first day when we were like, cause like I remember the first day in my room second year, I didn't even unpack like all my clothes before I like set the CRT up and like made the setup. Like it was like ready to go before I even had like something to wear for the next day. And I remember you visited either that day or the next day, and when we were playing, like everyone was like really shocked at how much like better you just looked. Like immediately, just the way you moved around the stage, everyone was like floored, because before you were like your claim to fame was like spending 6 hours with Midori going around Dreamland Luigi laddering and like insisting that we play on your shitty HD TV.
Yeah.
Can you imagine current you like in like a disguise going back to like first year you, and in first year just be like, dude, let's just play on the big TV. Like, what's the problem?
Yeah, no.
That'd be miserable.
It's blissful ignorance.
Yeah, it was. I mean, for you.
Yeah, for me.
I refused to play on that TV, I remember. I was like, I won't do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, second year, I remember everybody being like really surprised by that. Do you feel like your improvement during that time, do you feel like your improvement, I guess, like how would you say it is? Like, is it more like linear or is it more like choppy, like over time? Like
Since then,
just in general, like since the start, like do you feel like you've generally like had a steady rate of improvement or like there have been like you kind of move around in power spike or like powered, whatever the opposite of spike is, like
yeah, I don't know. I feel like I've definitely had my periods where I make a pretty clear jump in terms of like skill and
mhm,
how good I perceive myself to be, and like how I kind of match up against people. But then I have my dips, and I think that's fine, right? It's like
mhm,
either I'm not practicing, or like something isn't clicking,
mhm,
or I'm kind of falling behind, or something.
mhm.
Um, but no, I don't think it's linear. I would definitely give it like kind of like the boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
Like um, even now, it's like I wish my internet didn't suck because I could like enter like actual locals, like that, like good players enter,
Mhm,
and like I'm pretty confident that given enough time, I would like eventually like start to take names off of like kind of those fringe ranked players in SoCal.
mhm. Yeah.
Uh, and that's kind of like how I gauge my improvement in terms of like, oh, like I took games off of this play, this like known player, or I've taken a set off of this person,
Mhm.
like that just those things. Um,
Yeah. That makes sense. Like I think a lot of people that I know like to like sort of gauge it in terms of like they're close, like it's like close games, games you've won, like close sets you've won, and then like close tournaments and like tournaments you've won, and that's kind of like, and then like who was at those tournaments and who you like beat at the tournament. But like I feel like yeah, those are pretty common like measurements of progress for people.
mhm.
Do you recall like any of the things that you felt like helped you sort of power spike and like get to like sort of make like breakthroughs in your gameplay?
um, uh, I'm trying to think.
Hmm.
I don't know. It's weird. It's like I've never been like the kind of study VODs type.
Hmm.
I'm just more of like a in the moment. I want to try things and see like what's working, or like sometimes it just clicks, right? Like there's some aspect of the game that like didn't make sense to me, or I wasn't sure how to figure out, and then it just clicks for me, and everything everything is just so much easier to see. Like, oh, I'm supposed to like play the matchup this way.
Hmm.
Like I'm supposed to do this in that situation.
Right.
Um, I think also like when I first started playing, I was much more like, oh, I'm gonna watch this video and then like practice that until like I emulate it,
Hmm.
that kind of thing. Just because I had way more fucking free time.
Yeah, that makes
Uh,
sense.
yeah.
So in terms of like practicing and stuff, like did you ever have like a practice routine or like something that you like would do like, or like how would you say you practice the game like over time? Like what's been your like approach to yeah, to like practicing and improving?
Um, I think when I first started playing, it was much more like rigid. Like there's this like YouTube video on like practicing Luigi fundamentals like wave dashing or voodoo dashing, or like all that basic bitch stuff.
Hmm.
Um, that's the kind of stuff that I would be like, I'm going to devote time to like doing this and like learning this and kind of getting this tech down, right? Being able to
Right.
move around the stage.
Hmm.
Because you have to get comfortable with it before you actually start like being able to think about the game.
Yeah.
And yeah, eventually, and then it was just like playing, learning, adapting, being able to like make reads and uh, I feel like when I was first playing, my earlier memories, it was just a lot of like Hail Mary. Like I'm just gonna like vomit hitboxes and like hopefully it hits somebody,
Hmm.
you know. But over time, like especially now and like the last few years, I'm way more cognizant of just like these things like positioning and spacing and like getting pushing the envelope in terms of like a combo and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, it's just weird. I'm not like the study type. I'm not the type to like, I'll watch VODs, but more for like, like that situation, I'm gonna do that in that situation,
Hmm.
right?
Right.
Instead of just like, I'm gonna pause this VOD and be like, why did he make that decision?
Hmm.
Um, Things like that, and like, I don't know. I think that's valuable, but it's just not something I find myself really wanting to do or having the time to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those things where like people understand. It's like, learning. Like some people learn in different ways, and like the same is true for like melee. Like it's just another skill to learn. Like some people learn better just by like playing the game and like experimenting in like with a controller in their hand, and other people do it with like, a notebook and a video open.
Mhm.
So yeah, it definitely I think depends on a lot of things. Uh, do you think like so as a player, like how would you describe like your play style? Like how you play like, now back then. You kind of touched on back then and you kind of touched on now, but like maybe like a more direct sort of engagement with that idea.
Yeah, I don't really know. I think as a Luigi player, I kind of harness the cheese
Hmm.
that I need to. A lot of it was like, oh, nobody knows how to fucking play against this character, so that's kind of easy. That's cool.
Hmm.
I can like I can do really cheesy things that shouldn't work.
Hmm.
Um, but the thing, right, is like you hit a wall where that shit starts to not work,
Yeah. People
and you
start
start to
to
have
be able to look out for it and recognize it and play around it.
yeah. Um, and once you hit the wall, that's what really pushes you. And you're either gonna like try and solve the problem, or you're just gonna be like whatever, I don't care. I'm
Hmm.
just playing the game to have fun, like that kind of shit.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, but for me, I realized like it can't just all be just cheese. It actually has to be like strategies and like game plans and
Hmm.
everything.
Yeah.
Um, I think I think a lot of my play revolves around the ledge.
Hmm.
Um, Getting like ledge invincibility, using that like invincibility as an advantage. Like, um, I don't know. I've never been a platform player. Like I know a lot of players are really really good at using platforms, but I don't feel like I am.
Hmm.
Uh, part of that is probably because I suck at shield dropping. I'm not very good at it.
Hmm.
I never have been. It just maybe one day. I'm sure one day it'll just like click. Maybe
Hmm.
when I like start using the frame one, the box.
Hmm.
But as of right now, it doesn't work. So like, I don't feel like a very big platform player. Um, I don't think I don't think I'm defensive. I really don't. I approach a lot. I'll do like the dash dance grab thing if I need to, but generally I want to vomit hitboxes, but not in like a lame way. Like I want to like run in, right?
Yeah, you
And
want to
that's kind of
like
what that.
approach like effectively,
Yeah,
but you
I
want to
want to
be like
approach.
you want to be the one like instigating the interactions.
Mm-hmm. One
Hmm.
hundred percent. And that's part of the reason I get frustrated with Luigi is like it doesn't a lot. If somebody's good enough at abusing what Luigi is and what he can do, it
Hmm.
doesn't feel like I can do that. It feels like I have to play a different way that I just don't like.
Hmm.
You know. Whereas with Fox, it's like I can approach, and you have the strengths to do those things and do it effectively.
Hmm.
And then it's just a matter of like, oh, I'm not good at approaching, instead of my character's not good at approaching,
Right.
right? and that kind of pushes me to, because the thing is like a bad character is you develop a good defensive game,
Mm-hmm.
right? But a bad character, you don't develop a good like aggression game. I think those are things that like only characters that can do it kind of teach you,
Yeah.
right? So like my mind jumps to like Falco and Fox and Falcon and these really fast characters that they give you the tools to be aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
Some players don't use those, and that's cool. It's just I would much prefer to. So I think when I can, at the end of the day, I prefer winning.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of my gameplay is fueled by hatred.
Mm-hmm.
Like my Fox is entirely like a product of I hate Marth,
Mm-hmm.
and that was my solution. And funnily enough, I think me playing Fox and learning kind of like what Marth struggles with or like how to play against Marth made me better at the matchup as Luigi.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like a more holistic understanding of like the character.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's because when you approach like a matchup just from like that really like one-sided angle or like that really what's it call it?
Like insular.
Closed? Insular, yeah. When you approach it like that, like, oh, I am Luigi and I am playing against Marth and this sucks because Luigi can't do shit, right?
Mm-hmm.
You kind of you just I'm not good with words. You fixate. You fixate on everything that like Luigi can't do, right? And then it's not until you play Fox and you're like, okay, well, what can Fox do? And Fox can do a lot.
Mm-hmm.
That you start to realize like what of these things that Fox is doing can Luigi do?
Mm-hmm.
In terms of like approaching, using CC effectively, like mix ups or timings or like how to like avoid getting like counter hit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just things like that. So to sum it up, I guess I would say my gameplay, a little bit of cheese. I think I'm pretty good on the defensive. That's just because that's where Luigi requires it, and I think my aggression and my offense is ever growing,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm always trying to like push the situation to try and like have it be at the pace that I want it to be.
Mm-hmm.
That's not always successful because you know floaties exist and Luigi versus floaties is horrible.
Mm-hmm.
But it is what it is. You know, I try to have fun and my gameplay will reflect that.
Makes sense. So would you like on that note, do you think that for you at least like do you think that that like the game is more of an like not that these things are mutually exclusive, but do you think that the game is more of an outlet for like you to like for like pure enjoyment or like competitiveness or like I guess like not which one but rather like how much of each do you think like you sort of use the game for or like experience with the game?
Yeah, I think that's something I've definitely like had to struggle with of just like this doesn't feel fun, but why doesn't it feel fun?
Mm-hmm.
When does it feel fun? Like competitiveness is cool and it's dope and like winning is awesome and that feeling of like you know oh like good shit Steven like you know cool you got like first or second or whatever, but it's not the healthiest thing for someone like I think like me. I suffer from like really bad anxiety and it's only something I've kind of really come to terms with in the last year.
Mm-hmm.
That my anxiety is just like really bad and
Mm-hmm.
it's like always been there, it's always been prominent. I always have this like these really terrible feelings when I'm in tournament.
Mm-hmm.
And like I'm ultimately I'm fine, right? I'm
Mm-hmm.
not having like panic attacks or anything, but Um,
But there's a lot
I
between like yeah, being comfortable and having panic attacks. Yeah.
I really just look forward to the tournament being over and like playing friendlies
Hmm.
after the tournament. Like that is like my favorite. Those are my favorite melee moments.
Hmm.
It's just like tournament's over, like no, it's done. There's no more like tourney jitters. Like everyone's cool, relaxing, like drinking a beer or whatever,
Hmm.
and we're just like playing melee
Hmm.
and we're having a good time. And like you're kind of just talking to people, and
Hmm.
it's you're not like being fucking try hard because oh I gotta focus for the tournament,
Hmm.
that kind of thing. Um, I think my fondest memories of melee are with my friends who I
Hmm.
learned the game with. I miss those days, because what comes with getting trying to get good is you start to leave behind that kind of whimsical, like, uh, newness and novelty to this game of just like exploring it and like being kind of bad with your friends
Hmm.
and just having kind of pure enjoyment because you're not worrying about like being the best person like in the school or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think as of right now, I I hate I hate Melee because I can't play it online because my
Yeah.
internet is hot garbage. Like when you and I played today, it was the first time in months that I like genuinely enjoyed like picking up and playing Melee because I could like do what I wanted to do and actually move my character around, you know.
Hmm.
But in
Right.
the grand scheme of things, I guess I would prefer not to enter things. Uh, but like there's that kind of like that pesky competitiveness that comes out in me of just like, well, I want people to know, I want people to think that I'm good,
Hmm.
you know. Um, but then mostly it's just I don't know. I'd rather just grind friendlies with people.
Hmm. I
I
think
think that's fun.
yeah, I definitely know what you mean with like, because like there's a lot like I'm someone who's definitely attended a lot of tournaments but has not entered like a lot of the ones I've attended. I mean, not to say I haven't entered a lot of tournaments. I've definitely entered like I don't even know. Over the years, I've definitely entered a lot. Like I'm not one of the high. I'm not like on the upper range of like tournament, uh, like competitors in the region. I don't think. But in terms of like attendance, like I'm definitely up there. And even then, like when I'm not a particularly competitive person, there is a feeling like of I don't think it's like envy, but there's a sense of like I guess like regret or like second guessing when like other people are like competing and like putting it all on the line that it's like oh like I kind of wish that like I had entered and like just got to really like push myself and like compete and like be a part of like the tournament competition. But then like I always like because for me I'm kind of the same way. I really like the like the competitiveness creates a culture and attracts a crowd of people that when they're not engaging with that competition is like when I enjoy their like company and like that culture the most. But the
Hmm.
competitiveness is what like creates it and holds it together. Like if there was no competition, like there's a reason that like it's easier to get like more attendees to like a tournament than like just like a fest or something. Like if they're like if Genesis just decided they're not going to host any brackets, but they'll have all the setups and they'll stream like random matches that aren't in tournament or whatever, like people aren't going to show up. Like I mean, some people will, but generally speaking, like people aren't going to show up. Like they like the competition. Like that's kind of the heart of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like there's a lot to it. Other than that, I agree. Um, do you think, so like speaking of like tournaments and stuff, I guess, like, do you have any tournaments that stick out to you as like in or out of region? Or I guess both, like in region and out of region, that like were particularly like enjoyable or unenjoyable? Like ones where you were like, oh, this was like a really good time, or like did not
Oh
have a good
man.
time with this one.
Um, I think tournaments in region that I loved. I love the lands.
Hmm.
I love the lands just because they last all day and like I don't know any day where you can just like kind of devote like 12 hours to just playing melee is like a sick day.
Hmm.
Plus, there's also like something cool about like, oh, I gotta wake up early and like, gotta make sure setups are there and go set up and like
Mhm.
and things like that and like seeing everybody, just the camaraderie of it. Um, what else? I really, I kind of liked what we had going before a pandemic hit, like with Rockfire and everything.
Uh-huh.
That's good stuff. Just anything that like kind of it's like a bracket, but it's casual and people are drinking and like it's fun.
Mhm.
It's not something like Harold Frank Hall that's like sweaty.
It's like
I
it's a
don't know.
tournament environment. Or it's like a tournament happening in a hangout environment rather
Yeah,
than like just like a tournament happening in like a tournament environment. There's like a little more to it. Um,
yeah,
like, yeah, I can kind of agree with that. There's like this, like, there's something nice about having uh, sort of more dimensions to enjoy the game. Like, I remember Dave mentioned that he really liked how at like Drotzman Ale Works, the one of the tournaments that Ernesto TO'd and like secured a venue for. He liked that like all the tournament stuff and like melee stuff was going on in like the lobby, like lofted area. And then like outside of there, like you could just like hang out, but it was still like attached to the venue and stuff. So it was easy to like engage directly with the game if you wanted to, but you could engage with people that were like, in that community or like shared that interest, like away from the game as well. And like how that was like something that he thought was like really nice. Um, do any stick out in like a negative way as like this one was like I couldn't like really didn't like this or anything like that?
oh yeah. I've had my fair share of like shitty feelings. I think the most was like anytime I travel out of region, I
Hmm.
just don't like it because it becomes exactly what I don't like. It's like it's literally about the competition. It's like this pressure to perform well,
Hmm.
uh, and I don't know anybody. I don't care to know anybody. I'm just not that kind of person. I'm not somebody that's just gonna walk up and be like, "Oh, what's up, bro? Like, how's it going? We both play melee. Like,
Yeah,
let's be friends." I'm just like, I kind of don't give a fuck about anybody
it's
here.
like I'm here for business.
Yeah, it's like I'm here because I want to play melee and I want to beat people. Um, and it's just like overall uncomfortable, right? I'm in this environment with like a bunch of people that are either like around my skill, um, or they're like clearly better than me.
Hmm.
Um, and I don't really. And you're not gonna play the people you fucking came with. That's stupid, right?
Yeah, yeah, I know what you mean.
So it's like you're literally just losing on everything that I find like the most fun about the game, which is playing with your homies and
Hmm.
just like having a good time and not worrying about beating the other person at the setup.
Right,
You know.
dude. I remember
So yeah,
I remember Kevin was the most notorious. Like we're out of region, and he's just like, "Hey, do you guys want to play?" And it's like, what are you? It's like,
yeah.
come
That's
on,
like
man. You can play us whenever you want. Like, get some practice
yeah,
against other people, or like, just play some new people. And it was always
yeah.
like
It's
really
like
funny. I remember because it
as
was,
much as I would want to play Kevin, like sure, it's like, dude, it's literally a waste of time. Like I feel
yeah,
like I would be wasting my goddamn time if I played you.
yeah, yeah. I know. I remember at Genesis, he literally just wanted to like, he was just like sitting at a setup, like practicing tech skill for like an hour when there was like, tons of setups, tons of people.
Yeah.
That was so funny. I remember. Um, do you feel differently? I guess like for out of region tournaments that are like big tournaments, like super majors and stuff. Like, are those like a different experience, or are those like similarly like out of region?
Yeah, it's a different experience. It's more of a novelty. It's
Hmm.
more of usually like a big group of mobs. Like if I was just by myself at a super major, I'd probably fucking hate it.
Hmm.
But it's like just kind of you live and breathe melee. It's kind of like a LAN, but like a super version of that.
Yeah.
Um, you can just do friendlies with people, and like sometimes
Oh,
we back.
Yeah, I think that we're back. Let me just yeah, the proverbial crash happened. Let me just turn on my webcam. Let me reset to this window. All right, nice. Yeah, so you were just saying uh you were just talking about like it was like a land but bigger.
Yeah, super majors, they give off that vibe. Just like you just live, breathe melee. That's all you're doing for like 3 days.
Hmm.
Um, you're traveling with the boys. It's a lot of fun. It's cool. You know, you eat new places. You buy some merch.
Hmm.
There's not really a pressure to be the best one at the setup. It's kind of more like I want to like be sick and I want to have fun and I want to like have fun with these people that are
Yeah.
like here. You know, it's
Hmm.
not like oh I'm like I drove like an hour away to this like region and now I'm like sitting at a setup with somebody that's power ranked in this region. You
Yeah.
know,
Right, right.
um, it's different and I haven't had a and I think that's why I didn't really like the first major I went to, Paragon LA, because I went alone. I didn't
Yeah.
really have friends.
Hmm.
But every other super major I've gone to, like, it's great. It's a good time. It's a grand time.
Yeah, definitely. Uh, I guess like on the topic of like friendlies and playing people outside of tournament, would you say that like how would you say you value their like the gameplay and how much would you value like the sort of the social interaction and like the personality and like that kind of stuff? Like how much do each of those factor into like your I guess like enjoyment or priority in like playing people outside of tourney?
Uh, I'm I'm usually not the one to like spark the conversation. Like I'll just sit there and play somebody that I have no idea. Like we could sit there and play for like 2 hours and not really say anything to each other,
Hmm.
and I'm fine with that. Like cool.
Hmm.
But I don't enjoy that as much as somebody who's like actually like, oh, like where are you from, man? Like, you know, who's actually kind of talking to me
Hmm.
and like we're talking about things and like suddenly it becomes like, oh, we're making commentary on each other's like gameplay, like that kind of
Hmm.
thing. It makes the friendlies way more enjoyable, and yeah, I'm not one to initiate those things. I'm just I don't know. That's how I am.
Hmm.
Uh, but when somebody does, it's kind of awesome. It's a treat.
Hmm.
I don't think friendlies are enjoyable when somebody is very clearly like super duper tryharding.
Hmm.
That is like, bro, you're literally just want me to sweat at the setup.
Yeah.
It's like it's like unless like I'm preparing for bracket, you know. And I've played against people who like after a tournament's over or like at you know after they're knocked out of pools or whatever, they're just like super sweaty, try hard, and it's like, bro,
Hmm.
I I don't want to sweat while I'm playing melee right now.
Yeah.
Like I've already sweat like earlier, kind of sweat it out.
Hmm.
Um, sometimes people can be really cringe and toxic.
Yeah. Hmm.
Sometimes people are very cringe and it's very uncomfortable to play against them with friendly. Whether it's like they're like kind of like talking themselves down or they're like making commentary about your gameplay.
Hmm.
A number of things. It can be really awkward. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, or they're malding or they're kind of a rager, you know?
Oh yeah, that's dude, that's like the one thing I can't handle. Like that's the one thing that I will not ever tolerate. Or I guess that's not true. But yeah, that's like one of my biggest ones. Like for me, there's like, because I definitely feel you. Like I'm definitely one that's like generally down to start the conversation, but I'm also very down for them to just like not say anything. Like
Mm,
if they're just like I'm just trying to play, then I'm like that's cool. Like, but it's like the more engaging you are to like socialize with, the less I care about the quality of gameplay. Um, and it's
yeah.
like the more that they're like and then like if they're just like gonna sit there and be quiet and like not say anything, then like my tolerance for like how for like the skill gap is gonna be like and like the play style difference is gonna be way thinner.
Hmm.
Um like I remember I played against a guy. This was an experience I had at Genesis 5. I think it was Genesis 5. It was the one where I trained down at like 5 a.m. or whatever. I think that was Genesis 5. Um, and I remember I was at a setup, and one of the guys there was like super chatty and super bad. Like, this guy probably took like 10 stocks like per hour. It was like really bad. But
Damn.
he was super, super nice and like super chill. So like I didn't mind at all. Like he was like hyping up like everyone else to set up. Like when he would like look at the setup next to him and be like, dude, that was crazy. And then there was like legit another guy there. Like it was just me and him for a little bit. And then another guy plugged in, and he was so like he was definitely better than both of us. Like he wasn't like super duper better than me, but he was like very able to consistently win matches at that setup. Um, but whenever he would like SD or like you get something like cheesy on him, he'd be like he'd be like so pissed. And like so literally like I think like within like 10 minutes, like within like 2 rotations, I was like that was more than that actually. It was probably like five. Yeah, it was probably like 5 rotations. Like I probably played him like 5 times, and I was just like, I think I'm gonna like go somewhere else. Because like even though I was having like a much better like gameplay with them, like we were going pretty like it was like close games, but I would never win. Um, I was just like, I can't handle this. Like it just makes me super uncomfortable when someone's getting like that ragey and stuff. Like, oh
Hmm.
man. I totally feel you on like ragers and like people that are like just there to like because I feel like people that really rage are also they tend to be people that are like win at all costs, like in the mood to like win at all costs. Which I mean, nothing wrong with that mindset. It's just not very compatible with like your or my approach to like playing the game, like outside of tournament, like unless except in like specific contexts.
Yeah.
Uh, So, would you say that over time, you've had anyone that you consider a rival, at any points in time, or like, yeah, just like a rivalry that you think you've had, like regardless of if you think that they felt it as well.
Yeah. I think it wasn't until I became like kind of top-ish, like tip top of the PR that it started to be like a power, like a kind of me clearly seeing this person as like they are like the trouble, like the consistent trouble.
Hmm.
That's been Jake. That's been Jake, and it's been Dave,
Hmm.
and it's only been those two really that
Hmm.
have kind of like pushed me to kind of improve more.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I don't know. I think it's cool to have rivals. It's cool to have somebody who like you want to be better than, and like
Hmm.
you practice to beat them. It's like a goal, right?
Hmm.
I can't say I wish I was better at kind of separating the way I feel about like them in game versus compared to like in person.
Hmm.
I think that's definitely where I have my flaws and my like kind of toxicity in terms of that. But
Hmm.
um, I don't know. It's it gets better as I've gotten older.
Hmm. Yeah, that
I
makes
think.
sense.
Um, but yeah, I would say those are kind of my rivals, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Like over time.
Yeah.
What would you say, in terms of like, uh, I guess like your history as a player, like what would you consider like your biggest struggles and like successes, like the things that you're the most proud of and like the things that like you had the hardest times with?
My biggest struggles. I mean, I used to be like a pretty bad rager. Like I've spiked a controller before.
Hmm.
I've had to deal with like how to separate how to like take away how I perform in game and like my performance in a tournament and kind of like separate that from like my self worth
Hmm.
of like, oh, like I suck ass and like, I'm wasting my time and like, everyone thinks I'm shit.
Hmm.
Just things like that, right?
Hmm.
Um, but just realizing like it's just a game. Like, it's not a big fucking deal. Like, you beat some people, you lose some people. You know, you're gonna the earth keeps on spinning.
Mhm.
Um, that's something I've definitely had to come to grips with. Uh, you know, it was hard, but I think I kind of managed it. Uh, I'm definitely, you know, I get upset just like anybody. You know, I kind of mauled. I get
Mhm.
annoyed about things, but I'm definitely not in like the I'm gonna spike this controller kind of. Um, Successes, I think, I don't know. I think successes is what I have kind of done with my place, like as a figurehead.
Mhm.
Because some people just play and they just want to play, and that's fine. They're cool with it. Like, whatever. Like, you know, go on. You do you.
Mhm.
But I think I really find fulfillment in like using my place as like one of the better players in region to kind of push new like rule sets or push new like ideas or find new venues, like things, kind of like the betterment for the community in
Mhm.
that way.
Like using
Um,
your local outreach to sort of like jumpstart like other I don't know, programs, I guess, in a way, like things, activities, events.
oh yeah, like I'm the kind of person where like I'm not gonna like settle for less. If there's like a better way to fucking do something,
Hmm.
then I'm gonna kind of like be annoying about it. Like, yo, we should like do this because it's better.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm really stubborn about that. But it kind of pushes me to find solutions. Like with the whole like locals thing, we only had like but we didn't. I think what was the problem? Like we only had like the campus tournaments, right? And that
What
was
are
it.
you talking about? Like in like 2016 ish,
No, in like 2020,
like 2020? Oh, okay, okay. I see
2019.
what you're saying. Yeah, yeah, yeah. We had. I remember for a little while. And I only attended like I think two of these. But we like everyone was like relegated to like South Hall. I think it was like in like a literal classroom. Which
Yeah,
was and like you had to sit in like the chairs attached to desks, like which
yeah,
is okay for I've never really liked them personally, but like for melee, they're certainly pretty dog
yeah.
shit, to put it
They're bad.
lightly. Um, and then I think that there was that, and I don't know that there were any other I think that for a little while that was like the only tournament series we had from like I want to say that was in 2019 to 2020-ish. Uh, and then maybe there was something else at some point. I think they moved. Where did we move from South Hall? Because I think there was.
We were doing it in the USEN. Remember?
Oh, right, right, right. We were doing it in the USEN, the Ocean View room or something like that. The Ocean Road room, something like that. Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, there was that time period as well, which was, I mean, that kind of felt a little Harold Frank Hawley. It was like very small or it was very cramped and like ordinary.
Especially when fucking Ultimate kids were in
Ultimate
there.
and Melee, yeah. I mean, that was like 100 plus people in like a room. Like,
So
yeah.
there are things like that. There are things like the whole like let's replace all the GameCubes with Wii's.
Hmm.
You know,
Oh,
like
I remember that. Yeah.
let me like you know, there's this like Slippy thing. Let's figure it out. Let's get like everybody their replays.
Yeah.
You know,
And to clarify to anyone that might not know, we're not talking about Slippy the online service. We're talking about the Slippy launcher from Nintendo and like Wii emulation that enables other features, most notably the ability to save replays locally to a USB drive.
yeah.
Hmm.
Things like that. Things like I'm trying to think of like early stuff that I was like a proponent of. Um, I don't know, things like when like you were more of a TO at like
Hmm.
well, like helping you out with like bringing everything, bringing all the setups,
Yep.
making sure all the SD cards are in order, right? They have all that stuff.
Right.
Um, Making sure a Wii is working. If it's not working, why?
Yeah.
Um, and then like I said, like finding us venues like Avalon, Rockfire, just things like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say like in terms of what I'm proud of, it's like I'm proud of kind of pushing the community forward
Hmm.
in a way that like I don't think most other people would want to or like would even care to.
Yeah. No, that makes
You know?
sense. I think that the that a lot of people in the community have sort of expressed similar um, like interest or like progression, like as they like get better and better to like want to, yeah, like do something more. Like uh, there's like that desire to be more involved as a non-player, because like there are so many ways you can contribute to like the scene. Like I like even like I remember Spencer Williams, like he did like a ton of like stream overlays and like uh graphic banners and like stuff like that, like PR designs and stuff that were all like really cool and like established him as like a part of the community, like of like a significant part of like the community without having to ever really make a name for himself like in the game.
Mhm.
So like yeah, there's just a lot of outlets to do that. Uh, so if we're getting around the hour point, so I'm just going to ask a couple more questions. If anyone in the chat has any questions, please feel free to throw them out there, and I'll make sure that they make their way. But um, do you think uh, that in terms of like your time at SB, is there a time for you that you would like, not objectively speaking necessarily, but like that you would call like the golden era of like of like SB Melee, like your personal one?
Uh, it comes and goes. I don't know.
Maybe not a solid one.
Not a solid one. I mean, you can like quantify that in so many ways. Like you could say like, oh, because there was like so many like good or better players here, or like, oh, it's because the vibes were really cool, or like we had a much better venue, things like that.
Mhm.
But I don't know. I don't think I've enjoyed the community as much as I did like in the like 2019, 2020. Just like everything, like Avalon, Rockfire, like everyone's just the homie.
Yeah, yeah.
um but I don't know, there's fond memories. Hillel, the fucking graduate student lounge,
Hmm.
Ivy Vapor, the Zotos, the early Zotos,
Hmm.
things like that. I don't know. I don't think I could really quantify things like as like a golden age. It's just more like
Hmm.
times that I appreciate, and then times that I'm like really like having a good time.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, that's the thing, right? Is like I wasn't enjoying the community so much to the point where I was like, I'm gonna step away,
Hmm.
and I'm gonna like go play Ultimate, like see what that's about.
Right.
And once I got tired of that, and that was much faster to get tired of that,
Hmm.
I came back, and it was, I don't know, I just missed it. It's something I didn't realize
Hmm.
in the melee community.
Yeah, I remember. I distinctly remember when you were like, and no offense, no personal offense to Ultimate, or I guess I don't know. I don't enjoy it. I know that's pretty apparent. I don't enjoy playing the game very much, but I remember at the time you were like, dude, you should play with me, and like, I enjoy playing exactly one character in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, or actually exactly two characters, Snake and Ridley. But I remember, yeah, you like were like, oh, dude, like I just want to play Ultimate, and I'm like, okay, like I wanted to hang out with you, but you were like grinding the game, like you said, so like you wanted to prove yourself there, like in the early stages of it and stuff, which you did. I mean, you managed to get ranked on the first SB Ultimate Power ranking, um, with K Rule, and I think that was it K Rule Wario or just K Rule?
It was just K roll.
Yeah, and yeah, I remember you being like pretty about that, and then I remember when you came back to Melee, I was just like, I was like, thank God. I remember the first time you were like, yo, you want to play Melee? I was like, oh, I've been waiting for these words.
That's
But
funny.
yeah, so um, it doesn't look like anyone has any. It looks like I probably did a pretty good job of hitting the points and stuff. My last question for you is just what would you say for yourself is your, if you have one, like your favorite set of, if you like your favorite set that you've ever played or watched, or both, you know?
My favorite set I've ever played. That's a good question. I'm trying to think. Hmm. Maybe not a set. Maybe a moment.
Hmm.
No, I think one of the sets I could say was like the Ivy Vapor where I beat Tommy for the first time,
Hmm.
just because it ended in a misfire.
Yeah.
Fucking stupid. Um,
With with time sync and Holka in the chat as well.
yeah. And then a moment was like that Falco versus the World crew battle where I just cheesed the fuck out of Tommy 2 times in a row. The exact same setup,
Yeah.
exact same thing both times. That was hilarious.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah, that's like the most memorable to me. In terms of like most memorable I've watched, is that like watched overall like the game or like in SB Melee?
Oh, I mean, either is fine. Either, both, however you want to approach it.
Uh, best one I've watched, probably like the Arcadian sets. Those are always fun to watch.
Hmm.
Distinctly remember who is it? It was like Strider versus
Welco, Falco, Flame, Shane.
yes, and he fucking cheesed
Yeah.
the shit out of him. He
Yeah.
back three shined him.
That's zero. Yeah. We actually
That was
talked in
so
my
cool.
episode with Spencer yesterday. We talked. I asked him if he had any moments that like stick out to him. He's like, "Well, there's one."
That moment's legendary. I remember the whole like everyone that was just around there was just like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Game 5, last stock. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so grime, but I
Yeah.
respect it. I have to respect it.
Yeah. Winning at all
Uh,
costs. Yeah.
oh yeah, oh yeah. So that one, maybe like a set with Brian, like at a Zoto's. Like I remember I got super drunk at a
I remember
Zoto's
that
once,
one.
and I like was playing Brian, and like, I don't know when Brian and I aren't the sets that Brian and I are tryharding are horrible because tryhard Ganon versus tryhard Luigi is just like a really like it's shit. It's a shit matchup. But when we're just both just like yeah, we're just gonna like go in and like, yeah, I enjoyed those sets a lot.
Hmm.
Um, yeah.
Okay. Christina has one. Okay, so one question did pop in, so I guess, sorry for the debate, but Christina wants to know, and I'm just gonna read it word for word, is Steven a melee supremacist?
A melee supremacist? No, I don't think like more than most people. Like I think Ultimate's chill. I've played Brawl. You know, I like Brawl Olimar. I like PM. I like Smash 64. I like all Smash games really. Not really Smash 4. Fuck that game.
64
But
is
like
cool.
yeah, most games I'll like give a try and like I'll play and even if somebody like has Brawl out and they're like, "Yo, you want to play Brawl?" I'll play Brawl for like 5 games or 10 games. Like I don't care. That's cool.
Mhm.
You know,
Brawl
um,
minus.
Brawl Minus. Oh god, that I haven't played Brawl Minus in. That shit's hilarious.
Yeah, I remember when Sam was his Zelda was like dominating the floor.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, no, I don't think I'm a melee supremacist. Like melee is like the best one out of all of them, but I'm never gonna like be like, wow, you play Ultimate, you're fucking like you're
Loser. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think melee elitism it definitely exists, but it's kind of one of those things that I think it does exist, but people are very quick to call things like melee elitism. They're like, I think melee is the best game competitively, and people are like, you're a melee elitist, and it's like,
Yeah.
I mean, if you're disagreeing and you have another answer, does that make you an elitist for that game? Like,
Mhm.
and they're like, no, I think all of them are equal, and it's like, all right, well, that's a boring opinion.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I agree though. Like, I don't think you're a melee supremacist. It's like I think that like for me, am I a melee supremacist? Hopefully not. I mean, it's definitely my favorite by a lot, and it's not close. But I don't like hate on the other games. Like, I don't enjoy them, but or I don't enjoy. Okay, 64 is fine. Uh, Honestly, I think Brawl's cool. I think people hate on Brawl like way too much. Uh, Maybe it's because I got into it during like the Dark Ages, and I was like playing Brawl Falco.
Hmm.
Smash 4 was donkey dick. That game sucked big ass. So I agree with you there. It was so nice. I remember when Ultimate came out and everyone was like, "Wow, I kind of hated Smash 4."
Yes.
And I'm like, funny you funny you say that now. You got kind of mad at me when I said that like two
Yeah.
months ago. Um,
Dude, I'll never forget when it was when Isaiah he like just completely demolished the melee crew with Bayonetta.
Bayonetta. Oh, I remember that. Yeah, he took like didn't he like solo win?
He soloed the melee crew.
Yeah. Yeah, that was so. That's like, dude, that's like a moment. I feel like that is an event that is lost to time. Is the Melee versus Smash 4 crew battle where Isaiah literally beat every Melee player, like with his own like two stocks, was it? Like he
Yeah, I think
literally just took 10 stocks with his two.
yeah.
That's unbelievable. Yeah. Um, and then with Ultimate, like I think there's a lot to like about it. I think that Yeah, I think that melee elite. Yeah, I think that elitism for all the games exists. It's just that people are really quick to jump to conclusions when people just say things like "I like this game more than this other game" or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, I don't think I have too much more I want to ask. I think chat is pretty satisfied. So, uh, thanks for coming on. I appreciate you giving your input. It's cool to have somebody that joined at a different time, the community at a time different than Ivy Vapor.
Yeah. For sure. No, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Uh, so tomorrow we're gonna have Knox Ernesto at 6 o'clock p.m. and Calvin Swagger Muffin slash just Calvin at 8 o'clock p.m. So if you're interested in that, please do tune in. It's gonna be right here. Same deal. Oh, Christina, was that a serious question? All right, you give me a one-word answer for this one. Is Melee about the friends we made along the way, or the cool skill points?
It's the friends.
Yeah, but I think that uh, that's a good way to sum it up. And
Cool.
yeah, I'll post and like with all the other ones, I'm gonna post the VOD to the previous episode as soon as this one ends, or I'm gonna add it to the playlist. So thanks everyone for stopping by, and I'll see you later. Thanks, Steven, once again.
Cool. See you.
Yep, peace out.